When it comes to Rolex Submariner homages, one of the best options is from Sam Mariner. The real question is, how does this $140 Sam Mariner watch compare to the $7,000 Rolex Submariner? Obviously, the Rolex is a much nicer watch. It's a high-end luxury timepiece that uses different materials like white gold and platinum, but I thought we'd have some fun and really see if these differences are that noticeable when looking at these watches side by side. The Rolex Submariner is one of the most recognizable watches, and its design is a blueprint for countless companies making watches that look just like it, also known as homages. There's a lot of brands that do this, like Steinhardt, Invicta, Addiesdive, and Pagani. Among those, Sam Mariner is often the most recommended brands that resembles the sub, incredible quality, and a lot of value, at just a fraction of the price. I would have loved to have gotten a no-date version from Sam Mariner, but unfortunately, they don't make one. So please don't pay any attention to the elephant in the room. Aside from that, at first glance, these two watches look very similar, and even more so, the further away you get. Up close is where you really notice the different materials, finishing, and overall quality of the watch. But are those differences really that noticeable? It's all in the small details. Looking at the dial, the chapter ring on the Sam Mariner is wider, and I'm not sure why they chose to do this, but it does throw things off just a tad. The hour markers and layout look great on both watches. The biggest difference is the materials. On Sam Mariner, the hour markers are steel, filled with Lume, and on Rolex, they use white gold. With the watches up close, there's definitely a bit more shine and light reflections off the Rolex dial. Both have a nice sunburst black color, and hats off to Sam Mariner, they did a solid job here. Rolex's dial definitely shines a bit more, but I'm not sure if it's the dial itself or the sapphire crystal they use adding to this effect. The Mercedes hands look pretty much identical on both watches, but there is a pretty striking difference between them. On Rolex, the hands don't fully meet the hour markers and minute markers, whereas on Sam Mariner, they do, so it actually looks a little bit cleaner on the Sam Mariner. Both use blue Lume, and whatever voodoo Rolex uses on their Lume is quite solid. It's bright, lasts long, doesn't take much to be activated, but I will note Sam Mariner's Lume is really impressive. They definitely don't skimp, and it's quite bright. Moving on from the dial, another area that you could definitely notice a bit of differences is the bezel. The Lume pip at the 12 o'clock is different and more pronounced on the Rolex. It sits up higher as well. Also, the ceramic bezel insert that Rolex uses is really incredible, and at certain angles, it has almost a hazy look to it and takes on kind of gray and silvery colors. It has more depth than the one on Sam Mariner, but this could just be because I've been staring at these two watches for far too long. And as I said before, these differences are even less noticeable when you're a few feet away. The one on the Sam Mariner is done well though. Rotating the bezels on both watches is enjoyable, though probably not fair to really compare one-to-one in this aspect. It's definitely a smoother experience rotating the Rolex. The Sam Mariner is a bit loud, but not sure if that is a bad thing. The case is definitely interesting to compare because they look very similar. The top is brushed, the sides are polished. Not much to a high polish that could separate one from another. The brushing I was definitely a bit surprised by because when you look at both watches, they have very similar executions of their brushing. The lugs though are definitely a different story. They're a bit wider on the Sam Mariner, whereas on the Rolex, they have a slimmer taper. The side profiles from both the crown side and the other look just about the same, minus the different logos. I definitely give a big nod to Rolex here. Their logo is quite pronounced, whereas on the Sam Mariner, seems like a bit of an afterthought, but it gets the job done. Rolex's Oyster bracelet is definitely known to be incredibly well made, high quality, very comfortable, and the glide lock clasp is so convenient. So it's not quite fair to compare to any other watch that isn't in that similar price range, but I will say the Sam Mariner's bracelets are really incredible. Anyone who's tried it, they know, and if you haven't, I guarantee you won't be disappointed. Both have similar styles and tapering, brushed on top, polished on the sides, just like the case. And then there's the movement. No, I'm not going to compare an entry-level NH35 automatic movement to an in-house Rolex cost-certified 3130 caliber. They both get the job done, and for me personally, I don't really preface timekeeping as much as some other features of a watch, so it's not that important to me, but they both tell time. Now look, I get the Rolex is a nice, expensive, fancy watch. It's quite glorious. And the San Martin is just value packed and really well made. If you're in the market for an homage watch, you definitely can't go wrong with Sam Martin. I've tried many of their watches and I've always been impressed. I think they make really detailed, high quality watches, and the bracelets always impress me. I hope you enjoyed this video and taking a look at two totally different but similar watches. I'll see you next time.